Hi, my name is Mike Scheidrich. My partner is Carlos Mendez. We're going to be interviewing Prav Weisenburger at the New Rome Free Academy, and the date is 11/21/02. He's a Korean War vet, and we're going to see what he has to say.
When you are,
Let me start. What was your life like before the Korean War?
well, it was, if you mean good, but I was working in a mill, married. I'd only been married a year, so it wasn't long. But I enjoyed myself, small town, until I got home one day on a Saturday. My wife stood there with a paper that says, Uncle Sam wants you.
So you were enlisted then?
Yeah, so I was drafted, yeah.
Or yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
How old were you when you entered the war?
19. When I went in the service, I was 19. But when I was drafted, I was almost 20. I was drafted in August, and would have been 20 in November, which next Tuesday is my birthday.
Oh really? Mine's on Thursday.
Yeah. Well, mine will be every once in a while, every 4 years. In fact, it was the year I was in Korea, it was on Thanksgiving Day.
Did any of your friends get drafted along with you?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, in fact, here a while ago in the hometown paper, they had the picture of all of us. One of my best friends married a girl I went to school with, and we still keep in touch a lot.
Were your parents upset or disappointed that you had been drafted in?
No, I had a brother who was already in the Marine Corps, and my wife was the one who was upset.
What branch of service were you in?
The Army.
The Army. When did you leave home to start your training?
August 6th, 7th. So it was August 7th. I know it's on my paper there, but first part of August, yeah, went to Syracuse, and went from there to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And indoctrination there, they give you all sorts of shots. And then I went to Fort Dix in New Jersey, 16 weeks of basic training.
When did you leave, or when did you head out or ship out to Korea?
Well, I got orders for the Far East, didn't know for sure where. So I had a 30-day furlough, and my wife had a baby early in January. So I put in for a 45-day compassionate stay, and I disapproved. So my son was 2 weeks old when I left for Korea, and it was, well, he was born the 23rd of January, so 2 weeks later I was on my way.
Did you go on a plane, or did you go over?
Well, I took a plane from Syracuse, New York, to Camp Stoneman in California. And what they did there, every morning, everyone would get out there and they would call off names, the ones that were going to be going on the boat to Far East. Well, after a couple of weeks or so, I don't remember, I'd have to think back, but a couple of weeks or so, one night they said they needed 47 volunteers to fly to Tokyo. So I said, well, every day I stay here at Stoneman's is one more day away from home, so I volunteered and flew to it was Flying Tiger Airlines. We got to New Jersey at McGuire to leave. The plane wouldn't work, had a bad engine or something. So we used the same plane the next day and took off. And we had a nice flight. It was a commercial airplane. Stopped in Wake Island, Hawaiian Island, and Tokyo. And then from there it was on to Korea.
What was the first thing, or the first place that you remember the most when you landed in Korea?
Well, Incheon, when we landed, they took us by it was it was a boat, but it was one of those that they put everybody on. You stood up and you left the boat. It was at night, just like a herd of cattle in there. You didn't know who was who. And you landed in the dark, and because they couldn't have anyone seeing you. So we stayed there about a week, and then we went on by train to Seoul. And you traveled again at night. And those trains are not much for trains. But the worst thing was when I got to Seoul, little kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, standing there with just a shirt on in March. They were cold.
What were some of the major actions or theaters that you were involved with?
Well, when they first got there online, I'm going online the first day, and there was a couple of bags going by. I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Last night's patrol. 2 guys got killed." So that same night I was on patrol, and I was scared. But made out all right on that. Then I had to do some mine sweeping at night out in front of the lines. And that wasn't really great, because I had another guy with me that every time I'd find something, he would throw it down the hill, and we're supposed to be quiet out there. So after a couple of weeks of that, I said, I'm not going to be with him anymore. So then just regular patrol. And one of the scariest nights was every 2 weeks you got a shower, whether you needed it or not. And you'd go down off in line. They called it a Scotia R&R. You'd have the day off. Well, going back, you go at night, and you're in the back of a truck which brings food and stuff up to the line. And they got the little tiny cat eyes so that hopefully nobody sees it. Well, we went a ways, and all at once the truck went off the road and tipped over, and we all flew out. And we thought it'd be a good time to get some extra food. So while we were picking the food up, North Koreans, Chinese, I don't know who, they fired a recoilless down there. They must have seen the truck. And as long as you can hear it, you're all right. It's gone. But it scared us. We all flew on the road and left the truck and the food and just took off for our front line. That was one of the scariest things.
What were some of your major roles, or what did you do the most of when you were there?
I started, as I say, was just being a rifleman on line and going on patrol at night. Luckily, our patrol never was hit. But the bunker that I was in for quite a while, we had a 50 caliber machine gun. And we used to go out there at night, and they called it a listening post. One night, one of the new guys went out there. I wasn't out there that night, and rounds came in, and he didn't know what to do, and he stood there, and he got shrapnel, and that was it. But that was the worst thing, just going on patrol and not knowing what you're going to meet up with. But that same bunker, week after I was transferred out of there, 17 Koreans came after that machine gun, and we lost 2 that night, but they lost all 17. But then one night, one of the worst things to look at the next day, we took over for an outfit that was in a gully like where they had their regiment there. And that night, Chinese, they said they were 15, 16-year-old kids, and just kept coming. We lost it. There was 180 of our guys laying there on the ground when we took over in the morning. Well, things like that weren't easy to see. Then after, well, almost before the conflict stopped, because I got there in March of '53, in July it stopped, I did luck out. They wanted a volunteer to be a mailman. So I did, but what I did is I still had to go online at night to get the mail and stuff, because you couldn't do it in the daytime. Somebody might see you. So I did that, and then after a while the company clerk left, so I took his place. And then after the fighting did stop, before we were rotated home, they needed a first sergeant, so I was acting one until we came home. And our trip home was really neat. I didn't like it then, because it took, oh gosh, pretty near a month it seems out. We came by ship from Tokyo, and we landed in quite a few places, like, again, we landed in Hawaiian Islands, got off there. We, let's see, was in Colombia, they wouldn't let us off the ship. I guess the water was so bad, they wouldn't even let us off to have anything there. We had about 2,000 troops we let off there. And we got off in, well, we went through the Panama Canal first. That was nice going through the Panama Canal, and we landed in Puerto Rico and had, you know, a day there. Then landed in New York City. In New York City, my aunt lived, so she met me at the ship when we got there, which was nice. But I'd been gone for 14 months, and it was foggy, couldn't get out of Newark, I think it was. So what I had to do was take a train to Syracuse, New York. That was the longest train ride I ever had. But my folks and my wife, and that was the picture there. Met me at the airport. Now I had the weekend off after being gone all this time, back to New York City to go to Camp Kilmer. We had to parade in New York City, so luckily my wife went with me, and she stayed at my aunt's in New York City. So I'd go there at night, back to Kilmer in the morning. Then when that was over with, then I got a 30-day furlough. Then she came with me in the sun, and we lived in Wrightstown, New Jersey, and stayed there until I got discharged. I thought about re-upping, but I said, I guess I've had enough. But after about 5 years at RFA, I was ready to join up again. They told me I was crazy, so I guess I was. But I wouldn't have gotten to college if it hadn't been for the government, because I went on the GI Bill. So at least I got something good out of it. But some of the memories are not good.
Well, how did your commanders or your superior officers treat you?
They were good, with the exception of one new officer that went through West Point. And when he came there, he thought he knew everything. Of course, he found out he didn't. And we didn't really listen to him too much. And he transferred out to be a colonel's aide. But he thought he knew everything there was about there, but he hadn't been there, so as I say, he didn't really like it. He didn't report us, but we didn't listen to him too well. But all the rest of them were pretty good.
What did you do to pass time when you weren't doing on your patrols or when you weren't fighting?
Well, there wasn't much to do, really. We didn't even have cards. You couldn't play cards. You had guard duty a lot. In other words, if you weren't on patrol, you were on guard. We had one thing that wasn't too smart, but after you're there a while, you sort of get used to it. We used to have a tank that would come up at night. So the trenches that we did our traveling in, so we couldn't be seen, it was wide open for about 20 feet maybe or so. So we used to run back and forth, and they'd shoot at you. It was kind of dumb, but we just did it for, like you guys would, I guess, for a game. But it wasn't a smart thing to do. I don't think I'd ever do it again.
How did you feel when you were patrolling at night?
Scared. Yeah, because every once in a while an outfit would get hit.
Yeah.
But I was one of the lucky ones, I guess. Did a lot of praying.
Were most of the people that you served with, were they killed in action, or did a lot of them make it back?
Well, see, I was there near the end of the war, and there was a lot of people that made it, but when I found out more once I was company clerk, because I had to do all the paperwork for that, so there's quite a few that were killed or wounded. But the biggest one, or the largest group, was that one that we took over for. I told you that we got there in the morning, I thought, wow, what is this? This was a terrible sight. Legs burned off, and that was a tough one. Them little kids used to eat out of our garbage can, you know, that was tough to see too.
Did you know when your time was coming to an end?
Well, when I was gonna leave, you mean?
Yeah.
I kept score every day. I would check it off. I had a calendar, marked it off every day, because we knew we had to be there at least a year. And of course, when it ended, see, there wasn't a war then, but we still had, never knew when something was gonna happen. In fact, the last day was like 4th of July, when they have their big fireworks. Apparently no one wanted to carry any ammunition, so they fired everything they could find, I guess. We did, they did. A lot of wasted ammunition, but who knows? But that was a big day. Of course, we were glad that it was over, but you still had to keep down.
When you finally got notice that you were being sent home, were you happy or?
Oh, sure was. But I knew then again it was gonna take longer because of taking the ship home instead of a plane. Plus we had to go to New York City, and we prayed in New York City. But no, I was sure happy to get out of there. But I'm not sorry that I did it, because I did it for our country.
What were the last few days of your campaign like, knowing that you were being sent home?
Just going through the paperwork to ship us all out. It was just, we didn't get notice when we did. It was, you know, it was just a nice feeling to think, I'm finally leaving this place. Because the first bunker I stayed in, there was a sign on the bunker. It said, you're bound to go to heaven, you've already been to hell. That was, somebody put a sign on there. So I thought it was pretty appropriate.
Did you receive any medals?
Well, I got the combat infantry badge, which being online and being an active combat soldier, everyone got that one. I did get it's a bronze star that I got, but it's meritorious service. They have heroic and meritorious, but at least I was proud to just get that one. And then just last year I received this one, the Korean medal that they gave all the Korean veterans, the Korean government, along with a nice little letter of appreciation by the government that we served in Korea. I had a brother in the Marine Corps that went there year before I did. He was wounded, but not serious, so that was good. He came home and I went over.
What is meritorious?
Doing what, in other words, doing what you should do, and being faithful to your government and country, and doing it with merit. In other words, your merit is passing your grade, right? Ours was doing the job we were supposed to, even though we didn't like it. We did it. Once you got to a place like that, you didn't say no. You did what you were supposed to do. You were on patrol, well, you went, even though you were afraid. We used to make the Koreans carry our BAR, which was the most firepower that we took with us on a patrol. We said, it's your war, you go first, and you carry the big gun. I used to have a M2 carbine, which had you pulled the trigger and had 30 rounds up and then taped them 30 down, so you had 60 rounds. Plus, I don't know where I got it, but I got a 45 someplace, I forgot where, and I carried that too. Afraid I have a little extra, but it worked out all right.
What was it like to return home after the war?
It was really quite a relief. Couldn't wait to see my wife and family and little boy, and going back to work. I don't mind working, and I just liked it, but it was sure nice to be out of there. But if I was younger, I would do it again for the country. That's why in class I want the students to stand up for the pledge. If they don't, I'd get a little upset.
Did your family and friends treat you any differently?
No, no. My wife she wrote letters every day. Used to send me care packages, and I loved, you had a metal cup that you had for water. Put your water in there, and she sent me that package of soup. Oh, I thought it was like heaven. And we were there for, I don't know how many months, and powdered milk, you know what powdered milk is? See, you're too young. I probably can still buy it. It was powdered. You put it and mixed it with water. Looked like milk, we thought it was. And it tasted great. We'd never seen milk since we'd left home. Water wasn't easy to come by because that's not a good country for water. We had a lot of coffee, but it usually black. When milk came in, that was nice. Never had sugar either. I guess they figured we were sweet enough, we didn't need any more. But that was one of the biggest drawbacks, was when you're online the food. They would truck it up, and they called them coolies, to bring it up in a heated container, or, you know, an insulated one. If you were lucky, you got a mess gear, but for some unknown reason they were missing, didn't have enough. So if you were the end of the chow line, you might eat it in a cardboard box, if you could find one. So it was your turn to eat first, but then you had all the utensils. So that part was kind of tough, but the food wasn't bad, because you know, when you don't have a choice, it tastes good. But, so it could have been worse, but you sort of forget a lot of things. Try to. It's just like when you're sick and you forget about that. You know, you forget about all those things until you start talking about it.
What was your life like after having served?
Well, I went back doing the same thing I did before, working in a mill, working part-time. In fact, I worked 6 years in a garage, nights and weekends. So I was working a lot, and then my mother-in-law, thank God, said, in fact, Marissa here interviewed me one time for the Observer, you know, the Rome Observer. And I made note of it then. My mother-in-law said, why don't you go to college? I said, well, I hadn't really thought of it. So I lived in Pulaski, New York, and Oswego State was our closest college. Had an interview and went there and did it in 3 years. I went summers too, but I had 2 kids then. So when I got through, I came to Rome, and I'm still here. And I love teaching and still do. So really, my life was better when I come back because of that. And knowing, you know, what I thought I did for the country.
What do you believe that it all meant?
Well, I was just hoping, and it's been tough, but that communism was, you know, not into South Korea. And, you know, it has been better as far as I can know the people over there. We went over there to help them. North Korea still would like to be in charge of everything. And like you read now, they do have nuclear, atomic bomb, I guess. I don't know, nuclear anyway, but trying to get them to disarm again. I don't know if they'll ever get it, but just like Iraq, same thing. Let's hope that UN going in there now is going to find anything they do have. But I thought I did my part in keeping communism out of South Korea, and those people didn't like it. Hopefully it stays free like we have it. That's why here some of the students, they don't realize, they say, well, if there's a draft, I'll go to Canada and like that. I never thought of that. I was asked to go and I went. It wasn't fun. But I keep thinking I did it, you know, for all of you.
Well, that's all that I have. If there's anything that Carlos would like to add.
Like Can you tell us about some stories that you had there, like during combat or something like that?
Well, as I say, we did our job, and one of the scariest things one night too, we were moving, we had to move at night. We had about, I don't know, we started about 12 o'clock at night. I don't know how many miles we walked to another place on line. I don't know why I got in front of the ones that were behind me, and the ones in front of me got, so I walk out in a clearing. I'd only been there about a week, and here sat 4 Koreans. Now, I didn't know whether they were north or south. You can't tell them apart naturally. And I thought, I don't think I ought to shoot, because they didn't move. I thought, well, that's funny. So I just turned around and went back until I met the rest of the guys, and we all walked out there. I figured, well, we're all gonna go at once, or at least I'll have help. And as it was, they were South Koreans. I didn't know it. We'd walked for miles. And one night we had to put 300 anti-tank mines out in front of the lines. So we carried mines all night long. They buried them so that tanks come along and blow up their tanks. But at least when we put stuff like that down, it was on paper so that you could go back and take them up after the war. That was a tough night too. So you had a lot of sleepless nights. That's why sometimes, like I told you, when they tried to get that 50 caliber in our bunker that I had just left, thank God, 2 guys were killed because they'd fallen asleep. They were on guard, but they fell asleep. See, they didn't know they were there until they started shooting. 'Cause, you know, when you're up day and night sometimes, you fall asleep, especially at night. So that's what happened to them. But I felt I was really fortunate.
Were you in contact to the citizens of the country?
It was cold in the winter. That what you said, the seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had what they call Mickey Mouse boots in the wintertime. You know, you get your snowmobile boots now. They were big, but they were warm. So we had to change the seasons, but all I can remember is that it was pretty cold in the winter. We didn't have a lot of snow, but it was cold. Because, you know, when the fighting was stopped, then we slept in a tent. The bunker was warmer. You'd have charcoal. They'd give you a little hibachi pot, they call it. Put your charcoal in there like that was your heat. And candles, the Salvation Army was good to us. They gave us candles. But when you ran out of candles, we used to confiscate butter, which wasn't butter, but you put rifle patches in it, put it in a pan, use that for light. We didn't have flashlights or anything, so it made it tough at night. And you couldn't have lights at night anyways online because they'd see you.
Did you make some real friends there? Like that you...
Yes, there's in that some of the pictures there's a few Korean guys that were with us. See, we had Koreans in our outfit. They were just assigned to us. But you sort of lose track of them.
Do you keep in touch with somebody here, like?
The only one I keep in touch with here is a friend that I told you at the beginning. He went in the service with me, and he wasn't married then. And when he found out I had to leaving the son at home, he volunteered to go. But he never did get online, but he went just saying that he felt bad because I went. So we keep in touch. He lives in Syracuse, New York. Well, we converse a lot. But other than that, I remember a lot of the guys, but they were all over the country. Someday I'll go to a reunion somewhere, so maybe meet up with some of them, but a lot of them are gone now, that's the problem. But like I said, I was glad that I did it. I wasn't then. But looking back, I thought I did something worthwhile.
I think that's everything. Is that all you had?
Well,
Thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, as I say, I didn't enjoy it. My brother, he went to Korea, and when he got out of there, he went to Vietnam too. He was in the Marine Corps. They wanted him to go a second time, and he says no. He says once is enough. He had 21 years, so he quit. But
Was his story different than yours? Like,
no, I never asked him a great deal, really. But it was enough so he didn't want to go again. But he didn't say much about Korea either, which I don't much either, unless something like this. But I probably could think of more later, but I just, you know, something that you like to forget. But that's why I wouldn't want war here, because little kids, it's tough to see a little kid, you know, suffer. And they did. Guess that's it then. Huh?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
There's a sheet that we